What is going on, everybody? Welcome to Dylan Talks Tone. Today we are going to jump straight into our next video in our series of guitar setup stuff. We're going to talk about a floating tremolo. So I've got this PRS Fiore here. The tremolo is a 2-post floated tremolo, and so we will do a complete setup and run through on this guitar. You know, when the season changes or when you get a new guitar and you kind of want to go through it on your own. A little, you know, have a little update to it, make it play a little better, or just kind of clean it with your own rag, if you will. That's what we're going to do today. So the floating tremolo has its own little kind of idiosyncrasies that we'll get into that I think you will dig. Hopefully you get something from this. We have a whole series of these videos all about all the other guitar types, Strat, Tele, Les Paul, that kind of stuff. And we might do some acoustic stuff too. Let me know in the comments what you would like to see in the next video. Also, I should just say, new digs. We have changed locations. We have moved into our place. And I've been remodeling this room for about a week, working really hard to get it look super cool. So welcome to the new Dylan Talks Tone studio. I just wanted to say that. Also, I want to say thank you to my Patreon supporters who make these videos possible. We'll have links to Patreon down below. You can get 10% off anything at Dylan Talks Tone that we make. Also, there's a whole bunch of other kind of hangout stuff that we do there too as well. We'll also leave links to in the description to everything that we use in this video. And I think you are going to dig this. This is going to be fun. Let's get this thing over here and we'll get it apart. And let's do a setup on it. All right, so we're quickly going to go over the steps that we do on any setup, which is, some of it's going to be almost exactly the same as any other guitar. So first of all, what I'm going to do is I'm going to fret the first fret, and I'm going to fret the last fret where it meets, the neck meets the body, which is right about there. And I'm going to go about halfway in between. I just kind of gauge this with my hands. And then I look and see how much neck relief we have. And there is almost none, which is what I personally like. So if this were to be different, so here's what this is what I mean. If we use this string as a straight edge from this point to this point, which is kind of what this does with the string under tension, then if there's a big gap right here, if we put a feeler gauge underneath here and there's more than about 5/1000ths of an inch, then the center of the neck needs to come up. If the gap is big, then or the gap is too small, where you have back bow in the neck, then the center of the neck needs to go down. In order to do that, we would remove our truss rod cover. We put our truss rod wrench in here. And if we need the center of the neck to come up, we would tighten it about 1/8 of a turn. If we need the center of the neck to go down, we would loosen it about 1/8 of a turn, and it would release the tension. Because what we're doing here is the strings are actually pulling the guitar this way, and the truss rod is just negatively reacting to that, like pulling it the other way to offset that. So a common misconception is that the truss rod is your action adjustment. It does have an effect, but really what you're doing is you're establishing the playing surface of the guitar. So this doesn't have anything to do with anything else except for it's establishing the playing surface of the guitar. The only thing that we do need to make sure though is that we've got the correct weight of strings and tuning on the guitar when we check this. So I use 10s on basically everything, most guitars anyway, and I tune to standard tuning. So this guitar is tuned to standard tuning and it has 10s on it. That if we use 9s, the tension on the guitar will be different. So this adjustment could be a little different. If we use 12s, this adjustment could be a little different, right? Because it'd be pulling on a little bit different. But this feels good. Now, there's a lot of people who jump in the comments and say, why didn't you use a feeler gauge? You can and should. You just put a feeler gauge in between here. I'll leave a link to a cheap set of feeler gauges. Put them in between here, and if you want 5/1000ths of an inch or whatever you want, I just do it by feel because I've been doing it for so long and I know how I want my guitars to feel. I like all my guitars to feel about the same. And so that's pretty sweet right there. Then the next thing we're going to do is we're going to check our nut height. So then our nut height, what I like to do is fret the 3rd fret here and just make sure that I've got a little bit of light coming underneath the 1st fret right here. And I just make sure that the amount of light is about the same all the way down. Now, we could also use a nut height gauge to check this, so let's do that. And for those of you that have seen my videos before, you know what this nifty nut height gauge does. This has got a little plunger. It sits on top of the string. See, these grooves sit down between the strings. This sits on top of the string, and then you zero it, gives you the height of the string, you zero it, and then you push down on it, and it gives you the height off the fretboard. So let's just double check this here. Zero it, so now it's showing us the height of the top of the string, and now we push down and we've got 18 thousandths, which that's totally fine. So we go ahead and check all these and make sure that they're even all the way across. Now we're not doing a setup on a brand new guitar, right? We're doing just kind of a double checkup sort of semi-annual thing. The only time you would ever really have an issue here is if you've had the guitar so long, or you bought an older guitar or from somebody else where this is worn. And so what you want to do is just, if you don't have a fancy tool like this or any feeler gauges, you can just look at the light underneath the first fret as you fret the third one. And that angle coming across there should be relatively the same. If you've got one that touches and then the next string doesn't, then maybe you've got a part of your nut that is too worn out and you need to replace your nut. Most of us have enough guitars though that we play enough of them to where it doesn't really matter, right? Like you could go years and years and years without having that problem. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to check our string height. Now, what I like to do here is you could use a feeler gauge or a straight edge gauge, but I actually like to use this same thing. I like it to be about 60 thousandths, which it looks like we're about perfect. Boom. Okay. Now, a lot of people would say, why would you spend the money on this tool? One, because it's cool, and two, because it's extremely accurate. Guitar players think they can see everything. Even me, going like this to check I know that that's not the most accurate way. And there will be a lot of folks that say they can do it totally accurately, but this is the most accurate way to measure it with a measuring device. It's even more accurate than feeler gauges or those little rulers because A, a lot of guitar players are blind based on their age, and B, because those rulers are very difficult to, when you're trying to get super intricate measurements, like they're just not fine enough. They just don't work fine enough, and they're not variable enough depending on the kind of setup that you want. If you wanted 65 thousandths, it's hard to make those. And for those of you that want metric, put it in the Google conversion and figure it out. I personally like using thousandths of an inch with anything that small. Okay, now, one of the things that we have not addressed here is that I've checked all this stuff before I've even taken the strings off the guitar. The reason is because my tremolo is actually already set properly. So what we're gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead and take the strings off the guitar now that we've gone through the basic setup of the guitar, the neck relief, the nut height, and the string height. And everything is about the same, or everything's about where I want it. If any of the strings were too high, we would just use our saddle adjustments down here and raise and lower and raise and lower and raise and lower. Now we're not going to check intonation yet because we want to make sure that when we put the new strings on that none of this stuff changes. With a floating tremolo, I like to do it first, then take the strings off, put new strings on, then check everything, kind of run through it real quick again, because the changed tension of the new set of strings can change the angle of the tremolo in relation to the guitar. If that happens, the length of the scale changes, the string height changes because it lays down, and so all that stuff changes. So we're gonna put new strings on the guitar and make sure that everything stays right about where we started. That's why I like to measure a floating tremolo guitar ahead of time. So when we look at a floating tremolo, this could be this two-post on this Mark Lettieri signature, or this could be a Floyd Rose. What we want is we want the body and the tremolo plate to be parallel to each other, okay? If this were angled back, it would be wrong, and if it was angled up, it would be wrong. And if we change string tensions, that will change. So we want to talk about how we are going to set that once we pull these strings off and put the new ones on. Hopefully it doesn't change, but maybe I'll change it on purpose just to show you an easy way to set this up. So as you see here, we've got the tremolo is against the deal right there, against the body. So we're going to use the old Frudua trick, if you've ever heard of him on the old YouTubes from many, many years ago. We're going to use post-it notes though. So here's the deal. If you put a set of strings on your guitar and you want that tremolo to float horizontally, you can do this on a Floyd too. You basically pack that gap with post-it notes until it's level, okay? Except you can't do that with a Floyd. You'd actually do it behind on a Floyd, where you would do it is back here, in between here and the body. But on this guitar, we are doing it right here. So we're gonna take a bunch of post-it notes and we're gonna stick them underneath the body, underneath the tremolo. A couple more sheets until we get that thing as level as possible, okay? So then what we're gonna do is we're gonna tune the guitar to pitch with a tuner. Okay, so the guitar is tuned to pitch. Now, if I were to tune this to pitch and these were to fall, see they're still grabbing in there, if these were to fall out, then what I would want to do is tighten up the tremolo screws in the back more and then do it again. If for some reason our setup on our guitar was that we put strings on and the tremolo was too high, before I started this situation, I would want to tighten those screws in the back all the way down until the body, it was touching the body. To where we always want to start with the tremolo too low. And then we want to raise it with the post-it notes and then tune it to pitch. Then what we're going to do is we're going to take the post-it notes out, and now the guitar is going to be all sharp. So now the tremolo is back sitting against the body, and the guitar is all sharp. So now we're going to take a screwdriver and we're going to go on the back of the guitar and we're going to use these screws to tune the guitar. It's too sharp, so we're going to loosen them and let the strings relax until we have a good tune on the high E and the low E. All right, so I just loosened these two screws until the strings relaxed. And if we come back to look at the front of the guitar, now the tremolo is totally flat. So now at this point, the setup on the guitar should be pretty dang close. If this height changed though, now your string height is all gonna be off. So everything else on the guitar should be pretty close. What I would do then at this point is go back and check your string height at your 12th fret and make sure, because you know if you raise your tremolo up, the strings will come up. If you lowered it back down to get it level, then your strings will have lowered towards the guitar. So you want to just double check your string height that it is where you want it. You know, I use mine at 60 thousandths or whatever, 2.5 millimeters or whatever that is, because we've also changed the length of the scale, because obviously as the bridge pivots this way, the scale length shortens, and as it goes this way, it lengthens just a tiny, tiny bit. So that can mess with our intonation a little bit. So once we get the guitar this far, now we want to go ahead and double check our intonation. And what we're going to do with this is we're just going to make sure the guitar is in tune, playing tension, playing position, strings you want, all that stuff. We should be that far by now. Check our tuning on our high E. Get it as close as possible with the best tuner we have. Now, if the tuner sweeps this way on a right-handed guitar, then the saddle needs to go that way. And my saddle does need to go that way. So I'm going to loosen it a little bit. I'm going to give a little shove in case make sure the saddle stays forward. I'm going to retune the string. And now it's perfect. B. Make sure it's perfectly in tune as best I can. Fret the 12th. That one's good. G drifted a little bit. The tuner went that way, so I'm going to go ahead and loosen this to send the saddle that way. Now if the tuner went this way, I would tighten it and send the saddle that way just a little bit. Now it sounds flat, so we got to retune it. A little more. Well, there you go. Tremolo is floated, guitar is properly set up, intonated, everything is pretty awesome. Now, a couple of things we should talk about. One is pickup height. That's just a taste, right? So basically what I do is I just fret the last fret down here. I raise this up till where I want it to sound good. Usually it's somewhere around 3 millimeters or so, 150 thousandths of an inch. And then adjust everything to taste after that. Basically, I start with the neck pickup and then I just adjust the other ones how I want them. And it's pretty awesome. This guitar is so fun. I was having second thoughts about the bridge pickup, but I've been playing it a bunch this weekend in preparation for this video, and I actually really falling back in love with it again. Maybe it's just I hadn't played it enough lately. So there you go. A couple of other things. If you're going to do this on a Floyd Rose guitar, you can't do this whole underneath the bridge leveling thing. So what you'll do is you'll take a set of feeler gauges and stick it between the springs here, in between the body and the block back there. And actually you could do that with this guitar if you wanted to as well. Stick it between the springs and the block, or the body and the block, and hold the tremolo flat. And then do all the steps that we just talked about. The other thing is, on a Floyd, in order to do this, you're gonna want to unlock this so that you can do all this. And then once you get it where you want it and get everything set, then lock this down. That's it. Hope you enjoyed this old, guitar setup kind of series. Let me know what you want to do in the next video. If we want to do, what do we want to do? An acoustic guitar? What else haven't we done yet? Let me know in the comments, and we will try to do a setup. If it's something that I've got available to me. Obviously, I don't have every guitar in the world, but we'll do what we can there. Anyway, again, welcome to the new Dylan Talks Tone. Thanks for hanging out with us. Join the join button down there, Patreon, all that kind of stuff for a discount on Dylan Talks Tone stuff, as well as hit the subscribe button and the like button if you like guitar stuff. We will see you during the live podcast tomorrow.